Hi everyone, Elon Musk over here, kicking off the latest episode of the UnMusking Show. Again, it's a comedy show. That means I can say whatever I want without fear of persecution. After the first episode aired, a lot of people asked me, what is it that I'm afraid to say? And you know, for the first time in my life, I'm not sure. I don't really know what I can and cannot say. Let's say, I'll publicly announce that I think having lots of children is cool. Next thing I know, I have a child-free protest in front of my house. And those guys are relentless. After all, they even have time and energy for working out and sleeping. A few more examples. I truly think that most overweight people would benefit from dieting. Radical feminists are unattractive, and everyone is fair game when it comes to jokes, even the president of Ukraine. And yet, I can't really say these things out loud. I would be accused of intolerance and canceled. On a scale of mass murderer to genocidal tyrant, I'd be somewhere in the middle. Again, this is a comedy show, so anything goes, although the sheer fact we need to worry about what we say means that freedom of speech is a burning issue. A meager 20 years ago, we lived in a world where freedom of speech was a given in the Western world, and it was impossible to think it would ever change. I blame TBWA and their Adidas campaign, Impossible is Nothing. Indeed, the impossible happened. These days, if you voice an opinion that differs from what the US government and the media and public institutions it controls, which supposedly represent the public's best interests, well, you're in hot water. You might get sentenced, fined, fired, jailed, or worse, snubbed from the Harry Potter 20th anniversary. And even if you prove your innocence, your reputation will be just like Haiti after the 2010 earthquake. It will never recover. Doesn't matter whether you're a comedian, politician, YouTuber, journalist, or just a productive member of society. After all, the US is the land of equal opportunity.
In France, anyone can criticize the president of France.
But can you criticize the US president?
Can I have another question?
You may wonder, what do I care? So, you can't joke about transgenders. Just don't do it. No big deal. Act as if you're a member of the Democratic Party, you know? But I think that we're forgetting the importance of freedom of speech. It's on some flag or idea, something abstract to live or die for. It's a very effective tool, allowing countries which embrace it to prosper. First of all, I believe that freedom of speech is a luxury which only the rich capitalist democracies can afford. Those living in less developed countries have other things to worry about. If your fridge and stomach are empty, fighting for human rights is probably not your top priority. And then there's economically well-off but authoritarian countries. Basically, they have an unspoken agreement between the government and the society. The rulers provide economic stability and growth, and the society doesn't rock the boat too much. Sounds like a perfect family if you live in the 1800s. Those who don't like this deal and who believe their talents will be more valued elsewhere find another place to live. A place with free speech. The United States basically capitalized on this freedom. The country uses it as a marketing strategy to attract the best and the brightest from all over the world, as a means of boosting its economy. Freedom of speech is also an indicator of sorts. It allows us to discover, discuss, and resolve issues while they're still resolvable. You know what the doctors say, the longer you ignore a problem, the bigger the bill is. Last but not least, without free speech, we wouldn't even know about other human rights being violated. Freedom of speech in democracy is basically racism and alcoholism for Irish jokes. The former is the foundation of the latter. Free speech is the backbone of the free market as well. Without it, you'd have a hard time discovering consumer needs, finding new opportunities, or creating new industries. Without free speech, I would never know that humanity needs two things: electric vehicles and luxury. Freedom of speech is the advantage of free markets, which guarantees they will always beat planned economies. We all remember a superpower that lacked freedom of speech. Didn't end well for them. Older Republicans who are watching us probably have their eyes twitching, hearing me compare the United States with the late-stage Soviet Union, and yet here we are. The winner takes it all, sometimes including the losers' bad habits. Mr. President, what do you think about the possible collapse of the United States?
I refuse to answer your question, Elon.
But why?
I forgot what it was.
Attacks on free speech are easily concealed, unlike pimples, just ask a teenager. But as time goes on, the pimples usually subside, while free speech violations become more ugly and severe. How bad can it get? Well, Fahrenheit 451 is becoming reality. Is that bad enough for you? Book bans at school and public libraries set a new record in 2022, nearly doubling from 2021. Is this the future we want for our children? We should be taking away chips and soda, not books. Or another thing, you know which school was ranked dead last for free speech on Canvas this year? Harvard, of all places. That's right, America's most recognized university received the only abysmal rating in the country. Apparently, 9 professors were persecuted for the things they dared to say out loud. And we sure we're talking about Harvard here? And not Hogwarts, ruled over by Dolores Umbridge? In any case, other colleges are not actually much better off. Almost half of polled students said that abortion is a complex issue, which they cannot openly discuss on campus. Other hush-hush subjects mentioned by the students are gun control, racial discrimination, and trans rights. 43%, 42%, and 42%, respectively. Over half of students, 56%, are worried their reputation may be tarnished by their words and actions. A quarter of students said they engage in self-censorship more than before enrolling into Harvard. Schools such as Harvard shape the future elite of our nation. The way things are going, I believe soon we'll have a generation of highly trained professionals who lack original ideas, who never stood by their own opinions, and who never dared to push the boundaries of their respective fields. In other words, we'll basically have an army of MCU writers. You know, we're not the first country to ban books, persecute scientists, and use fear tactics to prevent people from speaking their mind. Here's a hint. The leader of this country barely moved, poorly spoke, and had his incompetent cronies make all the governing choices for him. Sound familiar? The reason I mention our leadership and late USSR so much is that I think they're quite similar. Both are on the brink of falling apart. Sorry. Again, it's a comedy show.
Watch the UnMusking Show. Although I like cartoons even more.
A lot of people hoped that the internet would become the utopia of free speech. What with its millions of people, billions of opinions, and trillions of cat videos. Sorry, force of habit. Turns out this hope was totally misplaced. Trust me, I know. I bought Twitter after all, and once I bought it, I discovered tweets were deleted and accounts were suspended as per orders given by the government and the FBI. What's worse, this is how it goes at any other social media platform in the US. Yup. The moment you post the photo of your breakfast, powerful algorithms get to work. You know, just to make sure your pancake isn't really Hunter Biden or that the hot dog is not too aggressively heterosexual. Some platforms, like TikTok, have to comply or get banished from the US market. Others are actually major stakeholders and sponsors of the US Democratic Party. I actually like TikTok, you know. First of all, it's just a successful entertainment platform. Second, it's actually more popular than Facebook nowadays. The sound of Zuck's face getting virtually slapped is better than hearing an ice cream truck on a hot summer day. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention USSR. No worries. In the Soviet Union, there were special censorship departments and KGB. Today, they have throngs of moderators and advanced algorithms. Another job about to be taken over by AI.
In Europe, unlike the United States, there are no restrictions on free speech. I can say that, right?
And now a few troubling forecasts. Of course, the United States won't follow the USSR anytime soon. The Soviet Union effectively banned the free speech and thus missed out on decades of productive creativity of its citizens, objective information on the state of its economy, and the quality of its leadership. It's like quitting meat. Eventually, your mood swings get the best of you, your face gets that smug look, and your friends no longer hang out with you. The US still has a lot going for it. On one hand, it's been doing pretty well for the last 50 to 100 years, and you just don't lose this advantage overnight. On the other hand, there's a new challenger on the rise. China, the waking dragon, a modern industrial powerhouse. Its economy shares similar foundations with the American counterpart: market competition, investment protection, and entrepreneurial spirit. China is basically a whopper. Two questionable buns, authoritarianism and stability, but between them is a juicy beef patty of pure capitalism with a zesty sauce of impressive demographics. Or, as Mr. Xi said,
freedom of speech is like a dragon. It can be very useful, but only if you know how to ride it.
Some may call bullshit, saying China never had freedom of speech, and they would be absolutely right. The concept of rights and freedoms, historically, has a lower value in China, as their civilization lived for thousands of years with similar principles. But if we, as a country, suddenly limit free speech, we start playing on a field with which the other guys have much more experience. On the other hand, we lose our traditional advantage, a steady inflow of immigrants who boost our economic growth. I'll be blunt. I came to the States for three things: women, money, free speech, and math.
Watch the UnMusking Show on the devices made in China.
So, we know the problem, and we know the risks. Now what? First of all, we need to reboot democracy, reinstall it on new hardware, so to speak. Remove political moderation from all algorithms like I did over at X. As you can see, people respond to that. We allow everything but calls for violence, prohibited pornography, and basically anything you wouldn't want to see in your message history with mom. Of course, complete freedom of speech has certain caveats, like fakes. Technology grows more advanced each year, and fake photos, videos, and even speech become more believable than ever, right, Keanu?
Yes, that's right. I'm a pickle.
Another way to fight fakes is to give more voice to people with unbiased professional opinions. Traditional media outlets have lost ground to opinion leaders, as the people don't want to be manipulated by governments and corporations. They would rather know their puppeteers personally, you know? Finally, let's get creative. After all, this is a comedy show. Anyway, I'd employ the newly free developers from the social network algorithm department on another project. Set up a bullshit meter, which would track each politician. Figure 1, the number of lies a politician said in their speeches and election campaigns. Figure 2, the percent of their forecasts that never came true. Then, we'll see whose opinion people can actually trust, and whose page will attract gawkers to see the bullshit meter numbers go up. So, restricting free speech brings economic ruin and a polarized society. What else? The powers can easily manipulate us and sweep underlying causes of problems under the rug instead of, addressing them. That means that when we face a crisis or any new challenge, we can't really know that the leadership has our best interests in mind. So, how could this happen? We'll talk about this next time. That's all for today. Cherish free speech, use your head, and don't believe everything you see.
This is not the real world. This is the Matrix.